Ever wondered how a small island nation took over the vast and culturally rich subcontinent of India? Well, it all started in the late 15th century when the British first made contact with India. This wasn't a grand political or military encounter. Rather, it was driven by the desire for trade, specifically for the exotic spices that India was famous for. As the British interest in Indian goods grew, so did the need for a structured approach to trade. This led to the formation of the British East India Company in 1600. The company was granted a royal charter by Queen Elizabeth I, which bestowed upon it a monopoly over all English trade with the East Indies. But the East India Company was not just a regular trading entity. It was a corporation with its own army, which it used to protect its interests and expand its reach. The company's influence grew so much that it started to administer vast territories across India, becoming the de facto ruler in many regions. It's fascinating, isn't it? How a commercial venture could transform into a political entity with such immense power. This was mainly due to the political vacuum that existed in India during the 17th and 18th centuries. The decline of the Mughal Empire left many small, fragmented states that were easy targets for the company's expansionist policies. The company's rule was marked by a mix of cooperation and coercion. It formed alliances with local rulers, promising them protection in return for recognition of the company's authority. At the same time, it wasn't hesitant to use force when necessary, further solidifying its control over vast territories. In this way, the British East India Company established a foothold in India. It was a commercial enterprise turned political ruler, shaping the course of history in a way that few could have predicted. So, the British East India Company was the first step towards British rule in India. The year 1757 marked a pivotal point in the history of British India. In the heart of Bengal, on a sweltering June day, the Battle of Plassey unfolded, altering the course of India's history. The British East India Company, a commercial entity, was about to engage in a full-blown military conflict against the Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dowlah. The Nawab, irked by the company's misuse of trading privileges, had captured the company's fort in Calcutta. However, he underestimated the company's resolve for power and dominance. The Battle of Plassey can be best described as a game of chess, where strategy outshone brute force. The company's secret weapon was not its military prowess, but the treachery of Mir Jafar, the commander of the Nawab's army. Lured by the promise of becoming the next Nawab, Mir Jafar conspired with the company to betray his master. On the day of the battle, the Nawab's superior forces could have easily overwhelmed the company's troops. But destiny had other plans. As the armies clashed, Mir Jafar held back his troops, creating confusion and panic. The Nawab's forces crumbled, and the British claimed an unlikely victory. This victory was far more than just a military triumph. It allowed the British East India Company to extend its control over the entire Bengal region, the richest province in India. The company didn't just gain territories, it secured a monopoly over Bengal's vast resources and trade, paving the way for its economic dominance in the region. The company installed Mir Jafar as the puppet Nawab, effectively controlling the administration. This established a precedent for the company's political interference in Indian affairs, marking a shift from commercial pursuits to political ambitions. The Battle of Plassey, thus, was not merely a clash of arms, but a clash of aspirations and ambitions. It was a testament to the company's cunning and resolve, demonstrating how it could manipulate alliances and loyalties to secure its interests. The Battle of Plassey was the beginning of the end for independent rule in India. It was the start of an era where the sun never set on the British Empire, and the dawn of a dark chapter in India's history. The British had a plan to systematically take over the Indian subcontinent. This grand strategy took the form of a policy known as the Doctrine of Lapse, masterminded by none other than Lord Dalhousie, the then Governor-General of India. To understand the Doctrine of Lapse, let's delve a bit into the workings of the princely states at the time. These states were largely autonomous, ruled by their own monarchs, but under the overarching sovereignty of the British East India Company. The succession of these princely thrones was usually hereditary, passing from father to son. But what happened when a ruler died without a male heir? This is where the Doctrine of Lapse came into play. Lord Dalhousie ingeniously decided that in such a case the state would lapse, or revert to the control of the British East India Company. In other words, without a direct male heir, the princely state would be annexed by the company, its independence lost forever. This policy was applied ruthlessly and effectively. States like Satara, Jaipur, Sambalpur, and the most prominent of them all, the Maratha Kingdom of Nagpur, were all annexed using the Doctrine of Lapse. The British East India Company didn't need to wage wars or stage coups. They simply waited for a ruler to pass away without a male heir, and then they moved in, taking control of the state and its resources. But this wasn't just about territorial gain. The Doctrine of Lapse was also a tool for cultural imperialism. By annexing these states, the British were able to impose their own systems of administration, education, and law, eroding the local culture, traditions, and systems of governance. It was a strategic move designed to consolidate British power and influence, and it worked all too well. However, this policy also sowed the seeds of discontent among the Indian populace, leading to widespread resentment against British rule. This resentment would eventually culminate in the Revolt of 1857, a major uprising that shook the foundations of the British Empire in India. The Doctrine of Lapse was a calculated move that allowed the British to take over vast territories without firing a single bullet. It was a testament to the cunning and strategic acumen of the British, but also a painful reminder of the loss of sovereignty and cultural identity faced by the Indian states. But the Indians did not sit back and accept British rule without a fight. The year was 1857, a year that would forever be etched in the annals of Indian history. This was the year of the Great Revolt, often referred to as India's first war of independence. A simmering pot of discontentment was brewing in the heart of India. The British East India Company's high-handedness, disrespect for Indian traditions, and oppressive policies had stoked the flames of rebellion. The spark that lit the fuse was the introduction of the new Enfield rifles. These rifles used greased cartridges that were rumored to be coated with the fat of pigs and cows, deeply offending both Hindu and Muslim soldiers. The rebellion first broke out in the garrison town of Meerut, where Indian soldiers called sepoys turned against their British officers. The revolt quickly spread like wildfire across north and central India, engulfing Delhi, Lucknow, Kanpur, and Jhansi, among other cities. This was not a mere mutiny of soldiers, it was a widespread uprising against foreign rule. It was marked by an unprecedented unity among different sections of society, irrespective of their caste, creed, or religion. The revolt saw the emergence of several heroic figures, like the Rani of Jhansi, Kunwar Singh, and Bahadur Shah Zafar, who became symbols of Indian resistance. However, the revolt was not a well-coordinated effort. It suffered from a lack of unified command and strategic planning. The British, despite being caught off guard initially, were able to regain control due to their superior military organization and resources. The aftermath of the revolt was significant. The British government took direct control of India from the East India Company. The Indian rulers who had supported the revolt were deposed, and their territories were annexed by the British. The Revolt of 1857 was a major turning point, leading to the end of the British East India Company's rule. It was a powerful statement of Indian resistance against colonial rule, a statement that still resonates in the hearts of Indians today. In 1858, the rule of the British East India Company came to an end. This marked a significant turning point in the history of India. After the Revolt of 1857, it became clear that the company's rule was untenable. The revolt had exposed the company's inability to effectively manage the vast territories it controlled. In response, the British government decided to take direct control of India. The Government of India Act of 1858 transferred all the powers, territories, and revenues of the company to the British Crown. India was now officially under British rule. The Queen herself issued a proclamation pledging to respect the rights of the Indian princes and promising to work for the welfare of the Indian people. This marked the beginning of the British Raj, a period of direct British rule that lasted until 1947. During this period, the British implemented a series of reforms aimed at modernizing India. They introduced railways, telegraph, and a Western-style education system. However, the British Raj was not without its controversies. The British government heavily taxed the Indian people, leading to widespread poverty. There was a significant economic drain from India to Britain, as India's wealth was used to fund Britain's industrial revolution. The British also implemented divisive policies that stoked communal tensions, leading to a deep divide between Hindus and Muslims. Despite these challenges, the British Raj left a lasting impact on India. It shaped the country's political, economic, and social landscape. It also laid the groundwork for India's struggle for independence, which ultimately led to the end of the British Raj in 1947. The British Crown's takeover of India was a pivotal moment in history. It marked the end of the East India Company's rule and the beginning of a new era of direct British rule. It was a turning point that would shape the course of Indian history for the next 90 years. And so, India became the jewel in the British Crown, setting the stage for nearly a century of direct rule.